The evening sun was almost gone, and a cold wind moved through the broken roofs of the alien settlement. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. People, hungry and tired, walked with their heads down. No one looked at anyone for more than a second. It was a place of fear, silence, and forgotten souls. Evan, a human traveler, walked slowly through the settlement road. He had come here to trade machine parts, but the sad faces around him made him uneasy. Humans rarely came to this side of the alien world. Many even warned him not to stop in this village. But Evan always believed that every life, human or alien, deserved kindness. As he crossed a narrow street, he heard a soft voice. A weak, shaking voice. A voice that carried pain. Human. Please, help. Evan turned. At first, he didn't see anyone. Then his eyes moved down, and he froze. An old alien grandmother sat on the cold ground near a broken gate. Her body was thin like dry wood. Her hands trembled. Her skin looked pale and gray. She held a small girl close to her chest, a girl who seemed no older than 6. The old woman lifted her face with great difficulty. Her eyes were tired, but inside them was a strange mix of fear and hope. She whispered again, her voice breaking. I am too old, please. Take my granddaughter. Evan blinked in shock. What? Why would you say that? The old alien looked down at the girl, who hid her face in the grandmother's torn shawl. The bowl beside them was empty, not even a grain of food inside. Please, the grandmother whispered, take her before she dies. Take her before they return. Her words made a chill run through Evan's spine. They? Who were they? Before Evan could ask, he noticed something else. The other aliens passing by did not look at the grandmother or the child. Instead, they turned their heads away fast, as if they feared even looking at them. A mother pulled her son aside. A shopkeeper quickly shut his window. Everyone acted as if the old woman and the girl were a deadly danger. Why? What was happening here? Evan knelt and opened his small food bag. He offered a piece of bread and a fruit bar. The grandmother pushed the food toward the child, but the girl's hands shook. She took tiny bites, her big eyes always watching the shadows around them. Evan felt something was very wrong. How long have you two been out here? He asked. The grandmother did not answer immediately. She took a slow breath and said, 3 days. Maybe 4. I lost count. They took our home. They took our food. They took everything. Evan's heart tightened. He wanted to ask more, but the grandmother suddenly grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Human. Please listen, she whispered urgently. They do not like weak ones. They punish anyone who cannot work. They punish beggars. They punish children born sick or small. My granddaughter. She is marked. She is not useful to them. Evan stared at the little girl. Her legs looked too thin. Her clothes were torn. There were small bruises on her arms, old and new mixed together. How can they do this to a child? Evan asked in disbelief. The grandmother looked around with fear. Because they can. Because no one stops them. Her voice shook, and she looked into Evan's eyes with a painful honesty. I cannot run anymore. I cannot fight. I cannot protect her. If you leave, they will come. And they will take her somewhere even I cannot follow. The little girl suddenly grabbed Evan's sleeve. She did not speak, but her grip said everything. Fear, hunger, desperation, hope. Evan felt his breath catch. He knew this moment mattered. He knew walking away would haunt him forever. But before he could answer, something changed. The wind fell silent. Footsteps echoed down the street. Heavy, slow, dangerous footsteps. The grandmother's face filled with terror. They're here, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, human. Please save her. Evan looked over his shoulder. 3 tall shadows appeared at the end. of the street, walking straight toward them. The three tall shadows moved closer, their heavy boots shaking the dusty ground. Evan felt the air grow colder, as if the whole street was holding its breath. The old grandmother lowered her head, her thin shoulders trembling. The little girl, Leary, pulled closer to Evan's leg, her small fingers gripping his pants tightly. Evan placed a calming hand on her back, though he himself was not calm. The approaching figures looked dangerous even from far away. As they stepped into the light, Evan saw them clearly, alien enforcers wearing dark armor, their masks glowing with red lines. Each carried a metal baton on their side, and their eyes scanned the area like hunters searching for prey. They stopped a few feet away. The leader, taller than the rest, looked down at the grandmother with a cruel smile. "So, still alive? I thought you would be dead by now, old one." The grandmother did not lift her head. She whispered, "Please, leave us." Another enforcer laughed, a harsh sound. "Begging again? You know the law. Useless ones cannot pollute the streets." Evan felt anger rising inside him. "Pollute?" he said sharply. "They're starving, not dangerous." All three enforcers turned their heads toward him slowly, as if noticing him for the first time. Their glowing eyes scanned him from head to toe. "A human?" The leader said. "This is not your place. Humans should stay in their safe zones." Evan stood straight. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just helping them." The leader stepped closer until his shadow covered Evan. "Help?" His voice was cold. "Human kindness is not welcome here. Leave the old one and the child, now." The grandmother shook her head weakly. Leary trembled harder, her fingers still gripping Evan's clothes. Evan gently moved Leary behind him and kept his voice steady. "They're not hurting anyone. Let them be." The enforcer leaned in. "The child is marked unfit. The old woman is useless. They belong to the disposal sector." Evan's stomach twisted. "Disposal sector? What is that supposed to mean?" "Not your concern," the leader said. "Step aside." Before Evan could respond, one enforcer kicked the grandmother's empty bowl away. It rolled across the ground and bounced against a wall. The girl flinched at the sound. The leader pointed his baton at Leary. "The weak child goes with us." The grandmother cried out, trying to stand, but her body was too weak. She fell forward, coughing. Something inside Evan snapped. He stepped forward, blocking the enforcer's path. "You're not taking her." For a moment, everything went silent. Even the wind stopped moving. The enforcers stared at Evan, shocked that a human dared to stand against them. Then suddenly, the leader swung his baton. Evan moved fast, grabbing a metal crate beside him and blocking the strike. The baton hit the crate with a loud clang, sparks flying. The force pushed Evan back a few steps, but he did not fall. The enforcer growled, "Human, you just made a mistake." Evan looked at the grandmother. Her eyes begged him to run. He grabbed the crate and threw it at the two enforcers standing behind the leader. The crate crashed into them, knocking them off balance. "Run!" Evan shouted. He lifted the grandmother onto his back and held Leary's hand tightly. Without waiting, he sprinted toward the narrow alleys behind the broken buildings. The enforcers roared and chased after them. Evan pushed through cracked doors, jumped over fallen beams, and squeezed through tight passageways. Leary ran beside him, her bare feet hitting the ground lightly but quickly. Her small breaths came fast, and her eyes were wide with fear. Behind them, the heavy steps of the enforcers echoed like thunder. The grandmother whispered in Evan's ear, her voice fading, "You should not risk your life for us." Evan shook his head. "You asked me to save her. I won't leave her." They turned another corner, but the alley suddenly ended with a high metal wall. "A dead end." Ira gasped. No, they will catch us." Evan looked around desperately. There was only one old storage door on the side, rusted and half broken. He slammed his shoulder against it. It didn't move. The enforcer's steps grew louder. Again. Evan hit the door with all his strength. This time it snapped open. Inside. He whispered sharply. He pushed Leary and the grandmother into the dark room. Then slipped inside and shut the door just as the enforcers reached the end of the alley. Evan held his breath. The enforcers' shadows passed over the cracks of the door. They looked around. They sniffed the air. They searched. But finally, after a terrifying minute, they walked away. Inside the dark room, Leary clung to her grandmother and whispered, "Are we safe?" The grandmother whispered back, "For now." Evan exhaled slowly, but deep inside he knew one thing clearly. This was only the beginning. Inside the dark storage room, the air was thick with dust, and the smell of old metal filled the space. Evan leaned against the door, breathing hard, listening to the fading footsteps outside. Leary sat beside her grandmother, holding her hand tightly. The grandmother's breathing was shallow, and her eyes were half closed. Evan finally whispered, "They're gone. For now." Leary looked up at him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Will they come back?" Evan nodded honestly. "Yes, they will." She swallowed hard, pressing herself closer to her grandmother. The old woman gave a faint smile. "Thank you, human. You bought us time." But Evan knew time was not enough. He looked around the room. It was filled with broken crates, old tools, rusted wires, and abandoned machinery. Maybe once this place was used for storage, maybe even workshops. Now it was just a graveyard of forgotten things. But it was safe, at least for a while. Evan stepped quietly to the back of the room, checking for any openings. There was a small broken window high above, too small for the grandmother to climb through. The walls were thick. The door was old, but solid. They were trapped. But safe. For now, he returned to the two aliens. The grandmother tried to lift herself, but she fell back with a weak cough. Evan knelt beside her. "Don't move. Save your strength." The grandmother smiled sadly. "Strength is something I lost long ago." She placed her thin hand on Leary's cheek. "But she must not lose hers." Leary's eyes filled with tears again, but she didn't make a sound. She seemed used to hiding her pain. Evan felt anger creeping into his chest, not anger at her, but at the world that made a child live like this. He sat beside them. "Tell me," he said softly, "who were those enforcers? Why do they want Leary?" The grandmother closed her eyes for a moment, gathering the last bit of strength she had. "They enforce the caste law," she whispered. "Every child is tested at birth. If the child is strong, they get work, food, a place to live. If the child is weak, they are marked unfit. They say the weak slow down the world. They call them burdens." Evan clenched his fists. "She's a child, not a burden." The grandmother nodded weakly. "To them, she is nothing. Her mother and father tried to protect her. They hid her for years. But the enforcers found them. After that, Leary and I were alone." Leary hugged her grandmother tightly. "Nana kept me safe," she whispered. Evan's voice softened. "What happened to her parents?" The grandmother looked down. "They resisted. They were taken. No one returns from that place." The room went quiet. Evan looked at Leary, at her small trembling hands. She had already lost everything once. He couldn't let her lose her grandmother too. He stood up and looked around again, this time with new determination. "We need water. We need medicine. And we need a plan." Leary wiped her eyes. "Plan?" Evan nodded. "I'm going to get you both out of this place." The grandmother's eyes widened slightly. "Human, you cannot fight a caste law alone." Evan's voice grew firm. "Maybe not. But I can protect you. I can get help." But just as Evan took a step toward the door, he heard something. A faint scratching sound from outside. I gasped. They came back. No, Evan whispered. Different pattern. Smaller, lighter. He pressed his ear to the door. The scratching grew louder. A whisper followed. Is anyone inside? Evan tensed. Who's there? Another whisper, trembling but familiar. It's me. Ro, I saw you run. I want to help. The grandmother's eyes widened in fear. Ro, he is from our caste. Evan slowly opened the door just a crack. A skinny young alien stood outside, looking left and right with fear. His clothes were torn, and he had a fresh bruise across his cheek. He pushed his way in quickly and shut the door. I saw you save them, Ro said. No one ever stands up to enforcers. You must be crazy. He looked at Evan with wide eyes. Or brave. Who did that to you? Evan asked, pointing at Ro's bruise. Enforcers, Ro whispered. They hit me because I dropped a box. I'm from the same caste as them. He pointed to the grandmother and Leary, the useless caste. The bitterness in his voice was heavy. He looked at Leary with a soft expression. She's marked. They will keep hunting her until... His voice broke. Evan stepped closer. Can you help us leave this part of the settlement? Ro hesitated, fear in his eyes. Leaving is forbidden. If they catch us, you don't have to come, Evan said gently. Just show us a safe path. Ro looked at Leary again. Something in her eyes pushed him to decide. I'll show you, he whispered. But we must move before night ends. After sunrise, the patrol doubles. The grandmother coughed weakly. We cannot move fast. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. Then I'll carry you. Ro swallowed nervously. Follow me. And keep your steps light. As Evan prepared to lift the grandmother again, Leary grabbed his hand. Thank you. Human, she whispered softly. Evan smiled gently, but deep inside, he knew this journey was about to get much more dangerous. The night grew darker as Ro guided Evan. Leary and the grandmother through a narrow back corridor inside the abandoned storage building. The walls were cracked, and the ceiling dripped with cold water. Every step echoed faintly, and even the smallest noise made Leary jump. Evan held her hand tightly while carrying the grandmother on his back. Ro walked ahead with careful steps, his sharp ears listening for danger. We must reach the lower tunnels, he whispered. Enforcers rarely go there. Too dark, too old. Evan nodded. Good, we just need somewhere safe until dawn. But the grandmother shook her head weakly. Human, dawn is not safety. Dawn is danger. They will search harder when the sun rises. Evan adjusted his grip on her. Then we moved before sunrise. Leary looked up at him, her voice small. Will we make it? Evan gave her a gentle smile. We will try our best. And I'm not leaving you. Her eyes softened with trust. They reached a small door at the end of the corridor. Rust covered every inch of it, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Ro pushed gently, but nothing happened. He pushed harder. It still didn't move. Evan stepped forward. Let me. With one strong kick, the old lock snapped open, and the door swung inward. Dust exploded into the air. Behind it was a dark tunnel stretching far below the settlement, lit only by faint glowing moss on the ceiling. Ro looked back nervously. We must move. Patrol may pass soon. Evan nodded and followed Ro down the narrow steps. Each step shook under his weight while carrying the grandmother, but he did not slow down. After a few minutes, they reached a wide space. Broken pipes ran across the ceiling, and old machines stood like silent giants in the dark. The air smelled of metal, mold, and forgotten memories. Ro turned to Evan. We can rest here for a moment. But not long. Evan carefully placed the grandmother down on a pile of soft cloth and old wiring. Leary knelt beside her. Nana, are you okay? The grandmother smiled faintly. "I'm here, my little one." Evan gave Leary some water. "Drink slow," he said gently. As Leary drank, Evan sat down and finally asked the question he'd held back since the chase began. "What exactly happened to your family?" The grandmother took a long breath, her eyes distant, as if she was looking back through painful years. "We were once a normal family," she began quietly. "Leary's mother was strong. Her father was kind. They worked hard at the factories. They believed in the system, believed if we followed the rules, we would have food, shelter, a life." Roe paused and lowered his head. He knew this story too well. "But when Leary was born," the grandmother continued, "the doctors noticed her body was small and her lungs were weak. They tested her, and they placed the red mark on her ankle." Roe whispered, "Unfit." The grandmother nodded. "The mark changed everything. Friends stopped visiting. Neighbors looked away. Her parents were warned. Weak ones slow the progress. They were told to surrender her to the disposal sector." Leary hugged her knees, trying not to cry. "But her parents loved her," the grandmother said. "They refused. They hid her for years. They kept her inside the house, away from enforcers. They worked double shifts just to buy extra food for her." Evan listened with clenched fists. "One day," the grandmother whispered, "their neighbor reported them. Enforcers came. They dragged her parents out. I rushed to hide Leary under the floorboards. I still hear the screams." Her voice cracked. "They punished them for rebellion. They never returned." Roe looked away with guilt. "Many families were destroyed like this. The law is cruel." Evan looked at Leary, whose silent tears shone in the dim light. After a moment, the grandmother continued, "We escaped the house and lived in the outer streets. But without food, without shelter, I could only protect her for so long. That is why I begged you to take her." Evan's chest tightened. "You did the right thing. You protected her with everything you had." The grandmother gave a tired smile. "But now, human, she needs someone stronger." Before Evan could respond, Rose suddenly froze. His eyes widened. "Quiet," he whispered sharply. Everyone went still. From far above, echoing faintly through the pipes, came heavy metallic footsteps. Evan's heart jumped. Leary grabbed his arm. "They found us?" Roe shook his head. "Not yet. But they are close. They are searching the lower tunnels." The grandmother whispered, "We cannot run forever." Evan stood up slowly, eyes determined. "Then we won't run." Roe stared at him. "What do you mean?" Evan took a breath. "We find another way. A bigger way. We need humans, my people. If we get to the human settlement, they can't touch you." Roe's eyes widened. "That place is far and guarded." "Then we go now," Evan said. The grandmother whispered, "Human. This path is dangerous." Evan looked at Leary and then at her grandmother. "I'm not afraid of danger," he said softly. "I'm afraid of losing you." And in that moment, for the first time, Leary smiled. A small, fragile smile, but filled with hope. The air inside the tunnels grew colder as Evan, Roe, Leary, and the grandmother prepared to move again. The faint echo of enforcer footsteps still vibrated through the pipes above them, reminding them that danger was never far. Evan tightened the straps of his small backpack and gently lifted the grandmother onto his back once more. Leary walked beside him, holding his sleeve like it was the only safe thing left in the world. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now held a spark born from Evan's promise. Roe stood at the front, trembling slightly. "If we take the northern route," he whispered, "we can reach the old railway tunnel. It leads close to the human border. But it is risky. Patrol drones pass there sometimes." Evan nodded. "Risky is fine. Staying here isn't an option." They began moving through the long tunnel. Dripping water echoed like slow, heavy heartbeats. Leary's footsteps were soft, but Ro's were quick and nervous. Evan moved with care, guarding the grandmother with every step. After a few minutes, the tunnel widened. Broken machines lay scattered, and old metal rails cut through the floor. This was once a transportation system, now only a silent skeleton. Suddenly, Ro raised his hand. "Stop!" Evan froze instantly. Ro pointed to the far end of the tunnel. A faint red light flickered through the darkness. "Coming closer, a patrol drone," Ro whispered. "Hide." Evan quickly pulled Leary and the grandmother behind an old engine casing. Ro squeezed in beside them. The red light grew brighter, humming softly, slow and steady. Leary covered her mouth. Evan placed a gentle finger over his lips, signaling silence. The drone rolled past them like a floating metal eye, scanning the tunnel. Its glowing lens paused near their hiding spot. Evan felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. If the drone detected them, enforcers would be here within seconds. The drone flashed its red beam across the engine casing, paused, and then drifted forward again, continuing its patrol. They waited until the soft hum disappeared completely. Ro finally exhaled. That was too close. Evan nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Let's move before another one comes." They continued down the tunnel until they reached a large rusted gate. Ro tapped a hidden panel on the side. The gate groaned open, revealing a long path leading to the surface. Fresh air rushed in. Leary gasped quietly. "Sky!" The moonlight spilled down the sloped path like silver water. For the first time since the chase began, they could see the open world. But with freedom came a new danger. From the top of the slope, Evan spotted a patrol tower, one of the border watchtowers that separated alien land from the human district. Behind it, faint but visible, the lights of the human settlement glowed like distant stars. "We're close," Evan whispered. Ro nodded nervously. "Yes, but patrols guard every border gate. They never allow our caste to pass." Evan adjusted the grandmother's weight on his back. "They won't stop humans. I can talk to them, but what if they ask questions?" Ro asked. "What if they refuse help?" Evan looked down at Leary's tired face. "Then I make them listen." They climbed the slope slowly. Leary held onto Evan's shirt, her steps weak but determined. The grandmother whispered prayers under her breath. Ro kept turning back to check for danger. As they reached the top, 2 alien enforcers stepped out from behind the tower. "Evan!" froze. Ro gasped. Leary clung to Evan's hand. The enforcers raised their batons slowly, blocking the path. Their cold voices cut the night air. "You run far, human," the leader growled. "But your journey ends here." Evan tightened his jaw. "I'm taking them to the human settlement." The enforcer laughed cruelly. "Taking trash to other worlds. Humans are soft indeed." Evan stepped forward. "Let us pass." The enforcer moved closer. "Step aside. The weak ones come with us. You may live." Ro shook where he stood, whispering, "We're done. We're done." But Evan didn't step back. He stood tall, with the grandmother on his back and Leary gripping his hand. "No," Evan said firmly. "You have taken enough from them. You're not taking them again." The enforcer hissed. "Then you choose death." He raised his baton. Before the strike landed, a loud alarm blared from the tower. Bright lights flashed from the human side of the border. Voices shouted, "Human in danger. Form shield line." Within seconds, a group of human security officers rushed forward, forming a protective wall between Evan and the enforcers. Their glowing shields activated with a sharp hum. The enforcers stepped back in shock. Humans interfering? A human officer, tall and calm, stared the enforcers down. "This border is under human protection. You will not lay a hand on them." The enforcers growled but didn't step forward, not against. Human shields. Evan finally let out a long breath. Leary whispered, "Human. They came for you." Evan smiled softly. "For all of us." The grandmother closed her eyes, relief washing over her face. Rose stared in awe. "Humans, protect the weak?" Evan nodded. "Always." And for the first time in years, Leary felt safe. Asterisk. The human security shields glowed like a silver wall between Evan and the alien enforcers. The air buzzed with tension. Leary stood behind Evan, holding tightly to his sleeve. Rose stared at the humans with disbelief. He had never seen anyone stand between enforcers and the useless caste. The grandmother whispered, her voice weak but full of relief. We are safe." Evan gently touched her arm. "For now. But we must keep moving." The human officer stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried authority. "Under human border law, no one can harm a human traveler or those under his care. You will step back." The enforcer hissed. "This is our territory. Our law. Protection overrides it while they're with us," the officer replied firmly. The enforcer glared but did not advance. He knew human shields were not easy to break, and attacking them could start a major conflict. After a long moment, he spat on the ground. "This is not over." "Human." Then he and the other enforcer disappeared into the shadows. The tension eased, and Evan let out a long breath. The human officer turned to Evan. "You brought aliens across the danger zone. Who are they?" Evan moved aside so he could see the grandmother and Leary. "They need help. Enforcers were hunting them." The officer's eyes softened when he saw Leary's thin body and frightened face. "A child." Then he noticed the red mark on her ankle. His expression shifted to shock. "They marked her unfit." Evan nodded. "And they want to take her away forever." The officer took a slow breath. "Bring them. The council needs to see this." Arrival at the human settlement, the humans led Evan and the others through the border. The path opened into a large settlement filled with lights, homes, and families walking freely. For Leary, it looked like a different world, one where fear did not live in every doorway. Children laughed in the distance. Vendors sold warm food near bright lamps. Humans moved without rushing, without hiding, without looking over their shoulders. Leary whispered, "It's peaceful." Evan smiled. "Yes, this is how life should be." They reached a large hall at the center of the settlement. Inside, human council members waited, men and women with kind yet serious faces. The leader, a middle-aged woman named Commander Hale, stepped forward. "Evan," she said, "you returned later than expected." "A lot happened," he replied. The commander looked at the grandmother and Leary. "Tell us." Evan told the whole story. The streets, the starvation, the chase, the tunnel escape, the border confrontation. The council listened without interrupting, but their expressions grew darker with every detail. When Evan finished, silence filled the room. Finally, the commander knelt beside Leary. "Child, is everything he said true?" Leary hesitated but nodded. "They wanted to take me. They took my mama and papa." The grandmother added softly, "They punished them for loving their child." The council exchanged looks, not of doubt, but of anger. Commander Hale stood and spoke with clear authority. "Human law does not allow cruelty toward children of any species. And humans do not ignore injustice." Roe looked confused. "But this is not your problem. Why help us?" The commander looked at him with firm eyes. "Suffering is everyone's problem." Roe's throat tightened. He had never heard such words before. A plan forms. The council gathered around a large hologram table showing maps of alien districts. Commander Hale pointed to the settlement where Leary once lived. "This caste law is spreading." Other alien leaders look away. But if we do nothing, more children will suffer. She turned to Evan. Your decision to protect them forces us to act. The grandmother looked nervous. What will happen? We will call for a negotiation, the commander said. A formal protest to the alien leadership. We will bring witnesses, evidence, and show what is happening to the unfit caste. Rose stepped back. The High Council of my world. They never listen. The commander smirked slightly. Then they will listen to humans. Evan frowned. But will they risk offending the Enforcers' leaders? They will not want conflict with humans, she replied. And if they refuse, then we will expose the cruelty to every world connected to this region. The grandmother looked overwhelmed. All this for us? Commander Hale placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Not only for you. For every child like Leary. Leary looked up with hope flickering through her tired eyes. Will they stop hurting us? Commander Hale smiled softly. If we stand together, yes. The storm approaches, but before anyone could celebrate, a human guard rushed into the hall. Commander! He shouted. Large group incoming from the alien side. Enforcers. And officials. The council jumped to their feet. Evan felt Leary grab his hand in fear. The grandmother trembled. Rose's voice cracked. They came here, why? The guard's voice shook. They're demanding the return of the unfit child. Evan stepped forward. Over my dead body. Commander Hale looked at him, a fire in her eyes. Not just yours, Evan. She turned to her officers. Prepare the shield lines. Contact the allied districts. And bring the council banners. Her voice grew louder, strong, unshaken. Tonight. Humans stand for justice. Leary squeezed Evan's hand, and for the first time. She wasn't afraid. The human settlement, usually calm and bright at night, now filled with the sound of alarms and marching boots. Lights flashed across the sky as human officers took positions near the border gate. The giant shield towers hummed as they powered up, forming glowing barriers of protection. I held Evan's hand tightly. Her small fingers trembled, but her eyes didn't look away. She had run so far, cried so much, but this time she wasn't going to hide. Not when humans stood for her. Commander Hale moved forward with determined steps. Evan, bring them with us. The alien officials must hear the truth from the ones who lived it. Evan nodded and gently lifted the grandmother again. Ro held Leary's other hand, guiding her toward the front where humans and aliens were about to face each other, through the shimmering border shield. The alien delegation appeared, enforcers in black armor, and behind them, robed officials with cold expressions. Their leader, a tall alien with silver markings, stepped closer. Human leaders, he said sharply. You have taken what belongs to our world. Return the child. Commander Hale stepped forward. Return her? You mark children as unfit. You starve them. You hunt them. You destroy their families. Do you expect us to hand her back to that cruelty? The alien leader narrowed his eyes. That is our law. And our law, Commander Hale replied calmly, does not allow you to harm a child. That overrides your customs when they touch human territory. The alien official hissed in frustration. You interfere with another species' internal matters. This will create conflict. Commander Hale crossed her arms. Protecting children is not interference. It is duty. Human officers nodded behind her. The shield wall glowed brighter as more humans gathered, workers, soldiers, families, all drawn by the news of the little girl who escaped injustice. The alien leader raised his hand, signaling silence. His gaze turned to Leary, who hid slightly behind Evan. Child, he said, you must return. You belong to us. Leary shook her head slowly. I don't want to go back. The alien leader replied coldly. Your wants do not matter. You were marked unfit. That was the moment the grandmother gathered her remaining strength. She lifted her head and whispered, her voice trembling but brave, "She is not unfit. She is my granddaughter. She is alive because she is strong. You punished her parents. You took everything from her. And now you want to take her life too." The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. They were not used to someone of the useless caste speaking in their presence. "Commander." Holly stepped aside so the grandmother could be seen clearly. The grandmother raised a weak hand and pointed at them. "You call it law. I call it cruelty." The alien crowd began murmuring. Even some enforcers looked uneasy. Then Rose stepped forward, chest shaking with fear, but voice steady. "I am from the same caste. I worked until I bled. I was hit for dropping tools. I starved while the rich feasted. You never cared about us." Another alien approached shyly from behind the human barrier, a young woman from the settlement. She removed her hood to show the same red mark on her ankle. "I escaped years ago," she said, voice breaking. "I survived because humans gave me food and a home. You would have thrown me away too." Now the alien delegation grew restless. Their own caste members, once broken by fear, were speaking boldly under human protection. Evan stepped forward, voice powerful. "This ends tonight. No child should be called useless. Humans stand with the weak. We protect life, all life." The alien leader's face tightened. "We cannot change a law so easily." Commander Holly replied, "You will. Or the entire human alliance will know what you're hiding." Silence fell. The alien leader looked around, at the humans united. At the aliens from the lower caste standing without fear. At Leary holding Evan's hand, slowly, heavily, he exhaled. "Very well," he muttered. "The caste law will be reviewed. Until then, the child remains under human care." A loud cheer rose from the human settlement. Leary flinched at first, but then she smiled, a real smile, wide and bright. Something she hadn't done in years. The enforcers stepped back. The alien officials lowered their heads. The border shield dimmed slightly. The grandmother's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Evan. "You saved her," she whispered. Evan knelt beside her. "We saved her. All of us." The grandmother placed Leary's small hand into Evan's. "Take care of her. She needs a future, not fear." She closed her eyes gently. Her breathing grew slow. Then still. Leary sobbed softly but wrapped her arms around her grandmother. Evan hugged them both, holding the little girl as she cried. Commander Holly placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. "She died knowing her granddaughter would live free." Roe wiped his eyes. She died a hero." Leary looked up at Evan with red, teary eyes. "Human, will you stay with me?" Evan lifted her and held her close. "I'm not going anywhere." Behind them, the dawn slowly rose, lighting the human settlement with warm, golden rays. A new day, a new life, a new beginning. Leary rested her head on Evan's chest. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. She felt loved, and she felt like she belonged.